Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about ADHD, um, my own opinion and my own take on it from my own experience. So, my children, all four of them, were diagnosed with ADHD. Um, and I'm sure that when I was a child, I would have been also diagnosed with ADHD had that been something that was popular in doing. I remember as a child there was a kid in class who was diagnosed with ADHD, and he was like classified as like there was something wrong with him. And I think that was back, I'm 47 now. So that was when I was in maybe sixth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. It was something that really was kind of, I don't know, new school. And from something that I noticed about myself, my when my children were first diagnosed, okay, so they got some medications. This was years ago, yeah, so that they would be able to concentrate in school. And I tried their medication. I also went and got a prescription for myself. I was diagnosed with it as an adult before my awakening. I'm talking about like, and it really did help with concentration. And after a while, though, I started feeling like numb, kind of like, dun, dun. There was no life in it. And I remember sitting at once and I was watching this documentary, and it was a science documentary. I think it was something about Einstein, quantum physics or something. And I was super intrigued with it. And the thing is that when in school, I was never really focused. My mind was looking out the window. I always wanted to be outside. I wasn't really interested in what was being taught. My brain didn't work like remembering all the dates and all the people's names and all of the things. I could remember energetically a story if it was told to me in an intriguing way. I could totally understand that. I was always more thinking about interactions, people interactions, why that person did this or why that person did that, or but my mind worked differently. Or I could see in nature how something happened, but what was the regular curriculum in school, it bored me a little bit. And so it wasn't, I would try to focus on it. It was so boring that my mind would just go in other places. But one time as an adult, I was after I started awakening. um, I was watching this documentary. It was some kind of science documentary, and everything that was said there was intriguing to me. It's like, and I realized I kept on having to everything that was said, my mind would start running off on it, and it was intriguing and interesting. And so every few minutes I had to stop the program and rewind it a few minutes and re-listen. And I was thinking, this is exactly the non-focus. And then I started going into my mind to see what was happening in my mind, and I realized that it wasn't that I wasn't focused. It's that everything that interested me, it's like a tree with branches, right? So there was the documentary going on that was the main, stem of the tree, and like the trunk going straight. And then everything that was said would send me off in like my mind spiraling, like my mind going, "Oh, wait, that's interesting." And then I would go in and I would figure it all out, and I would settle it all in my mind and figure out, okay, how that works and how that is, and then all the mechanisms of that. And then by the time I would come back to the documentary had already progressed 5 minutes, and I would have to rewind it 5 minutes, and then another thing was said, and then my mind would go off into that. And what I realized is that I was self-teaching myself. While the documentary was going on, every single point that was made, I was thoroughly thinking it out. Thoroughly, every single thing was coming into my mind, and I was able to figure it out within my own and bring it into my own mind and settle it in a way that it was working for me. And and then I started thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. Um, Instead of just learning one line, I'm learning during this same process, I'm learning, self-teaching myself multiple different things. So by the end of the documentary, once I got through the entire documentary, I was so much further enriched than just the main line of what they were teaching. And I started seeing it as a kind of genius, as a kind of, because I've always been kind of outside of the box, always been kind of a self thinker and figuring things out on my own, and kind of a little bit have to make the judgment on my own and realize the things on my own. Um, and so I started thinking, okay, so this is a kind of genius. And I started looking at other people around me, and I see that a lot of the people that are complete geniuses in my mind are the same way. Are self-thinkers, are in school, we're diagnosed with ADHD. It's like we're taking the self-thinkers and people that think outside of the box, and we're medicating them to fit back into the box, like making them go to sleep so they fit back into the box. There's so many, and it's ADHD, attention deficit, right? But as far as I know, my children and myself, we have a very strong focus and attention in things that interest us. It's not like we don't have any kind of attention. We're not able to put focus on anything. I do understand that there are, also with going through traumas, when you go through traumas, but that is a completely different set of rules that I'll talk about in a different video. I might have talked about it in some videos that I'll put it into a real quick. When you are under constant threat, you don't go into deep focus because you're always afraid of that threat coming in. So a lot of times when you have traumas, something happened to you, you are always living on the surface. You don't allow your mind to go deep, because it's kind of like putting yourself into a place of vulnerability. When you go deep into thought, then you're not aware of your surroundings, and you always feel like you have to be on top of, you always have to keep your awareness and your alertness alert. So that's a different kind of, not being able to focus on things. But what I notice with my children is, attention deficit. There is no deficit there. It's a deficit according to whatever, this is part of humanity getting so far away from accepting, that there's so many different kinds of people, there's so many different kinds of ways of thinking, and there's so many different, humanity came in to do school and teach the children in this one little streamline, in this one little box. And anybody that is outside of the box, let's medicate them and bring them back into the box. It's kind of like, taking all the people from the sidelines and trying to stuff them into this mainstream. All the things that threaten society, self-thinking people, and whether it's done in consciously, or whether it's done subconsciously, by the matrix. The matrix is this big, massive archetype. The archetype is an entity within itself, right? The archetype gets life from us feeding it, from us being within it. And then as we start saying, okay, these are the social standards, and we have to hold everybody in this little box here, otherwise it threatens the archetype, it threatens the socialism, the what we have built, this big glass dome that we built, that humanity sits within it, and bring all of the outside back into the box, and if they're not in the box, it's going to threaten the archetype. It might break the rules. It might break what society has a consensus of believing that is true and must be. And so we have to bring all those people back and make them have severe insecurities, and make sure that they think that they have something wrong with them, disorder, right? Hyperactivity disorder. Um, so attention, it's not that people don't have attention. They just have attention in what they're interested in, right? And they're interested in other things than what is defined by a school, right? So we medicate our children that are self-thinkers and self-teachers, that teach themselves and that are outside of the box, and that have high, okay, and we tell them, okay, you have a deficiency. There's something wrong with you. And then hyperactive. Okay, so hyperactive is energetic. There is nothing wrong with children that are energetic. Energetic is how you learn, how you experience the world. Do you watch the chimpanzees, you watch the lion cubs, they're in action, they're playing. That is how our cubs, our human cubs, are meant to experience the world, through play. They go out and they play with each other and they interact with the world. And hyperactive, I would say, is that you're more active, you're more hyper, you're more genius, maybe in a different way. There is no more or less, but well, maybe there is, but genius in a different way. You want to experience the life. You're experiencing, you're out, you're touching everything, you're doing everything, you're running around, you are, by nature, that is your given talent. I met this young lad. I think he must have been like 18, 19, and he was totally hyperactive. But he was hyperactive in such a way that it was just so much fun to be around him. He was building things, and then he would go over here and he would do this and he would go over here, and he was totally creative, and he was constantly in movement, constantly in movement, constantly in movement. Who are we to say, okay, you need to take a pill to bring down your hyperactivity so that you, at age 6, will sit in a classroom for hours and hours and hours against your own nature? So we are like zombieing out anybody that is a little bit different than what we say is the norm, right? And telling them that there's something wrong with them. And then it's a disorder. It's attention deficit hyperactive disorder. There's something wrong with you. Yeah, there is nothing wrong with our children. There, there, and I'm very happy for this platform because I can say my opinion. It's my opinion. Everything that I say is my opinion and how I see the world, and I am being an expression of myself. And also my children, I see how their minds work. Their minds work very similar to, very different than I am, but also in a similar way in certain aspects. Like, my mind is going in all different directions. You can also see it if you've been watching my videos, that I'll be talking about one thing, and then one thing will lead to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, and then within a video that is 12 minutes long, I will make it's 15 different points. And you could say, okay, so attention deficit, but I see it more like as there is a lot more coming through. There's a lot coming through. There's a lot of thoughts processes happening. There's a lot happening all at once. It's kind of like finding your genius. You're when you have a mind that wants to learn, that is curious, that is always thinking, then there are always thoughts coming in. So you make this one point, okay, move on to the next point, move on to the next point, move on to the next point. So those are my thoughts on ADHD. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it.